and introductions.
Great. Thank you, Emily, and thanks everyone for attending the webinar today. We really appreciate you taking time out of your day to talk all things AI. Obviously, it is a very relevant, probably the most relevant topic in Treasury today, is how to use AI in the different approaches. And it's a journey for everybody. And I'm really pleased with the panelists here today. So I'm Ed Barrie. My role here at Treasury 4 is Chief Product Officer. And my background is a corporate treasury practitioner for over 20 years. And I would say in my time and career, I've never seen a technology come on so fast, so pervasively, so quickly as AI. And I think we could all agree on that. And with that, I'll turn it over to Joseph to introduce himself.
No, thanks, Ed, and thanks to Treasury 4 for including NeuGroup in your Decoded AI Treasury series. This is a conversation that I'm really excited about. I'm the founder and CEO of NeuGroup, and one of the greatest things about my job is I get to have conversations with our members, and this is a conversation around AI that we're having almost every week. So this session is really kind of a natural fit into those conversations, and it's kind of summarize, how I kind of see the AI journey going. I kind of see it as coming in three waves, and the first wave is kind of AI as writer, editor, summarizer. In the early portions of AI, people were taking all the bank research coming in to their inbox, and having AI summarize that for them. And it was a great time saver and a way to get all that knowledge that you're getting from banks and other places into your heads quickly, and then importantly passing that on to your team. Wave two, I would sort of characterize as AI doing more discrete work, whether it's helping with bank fee analysis or looking at terms and credit agreements and remittance matching, et cetera. But, more looking at discrete tasks, which over time increasingly became, getting agents to do that. So agentic AI around discrete tasks. And now we're kind of in, the next stage of wave three. And, not everybody's is gone through all these waves yet. But, we're seeing people really looking at end-to-end processes and getting AI to help automate those big processes, whether it's the order of the cash cycle or forecast to decision making, that is a bigger challenge because it often cuts across multiple areas of the finance function and maybe even the business. But this is really where the needle gets moved, and so why the focus is shifting to, the big value creating hours saved, weeks saved in wave three. And I think that's kind of a good way to think about it. In all of these things, there's been some constraints on progress. Particularly as you got into to wave two and certainly wave three. Data has been a big constraint and continues to be. So I think that's something we can dig into in terms of connections and permissions and quality and all these things around data that are really, really important. And I think as we go through this, I'd love to get feedback on where you feel like you're in, which wave you're in, and maybe as a bit of an icebreaker to see where people are in terms of implementing AI solutions. If you could just kind of type in the chat, are you doing something with AI in production today? And maybe just type one if you're doing that. Two, if you're piloting something. And three, if you're still in the scoping stage of figuring out what you do. That'll sort of help assess where people are. But before I hand off to our panelists here to share some of their user case studies, I thought I would share, what we've seen across the NeuGroup membership network, and I put together a slide here that kind of ranks by category. I mean, what we've done over the first half meeting cycles, we started collecting use cases and had members kind of share what they were doing with AI and kind of collected it into an online application that we launched about a month or so ago with our new NeuGroup Connect platform. We kind of dubbed it the AI workbench, and the two main things I wanted to call out is one, the categorization of these use cases. It's kind of interesting that, everyone thought cash forecasting and was going to be the holy grail solution, and maybe ran against some issues with that, probably around data. But it's still in the top five category and important. But we found it's very interesting that AR credit and collections has really come to the fore there. And then I also wanted to call out, because we have a internal audit and SOX oriented groups, and they they really have a lot of use cases in that area too, which is outside the scope of Treasury. But I think interesting that I think it's called out there that even a small number of companies in the sample set have produced a high proportion of the cases. Um, then I sort of cut it by value creating, kind of looking at trying to move people towards this wave three where we're looking holistically end to end, where you're going to get real value creation, which again is not where most people are. But this is kind of five use cases that I wanted to call out because I think they're value creating. One is around the credit decisioning, and this goes to the credit collection use cases, which has become really important with like super fast growing companies where their credit limits have kind of curtailed sales, and getting AI to help unblock that and speed the process is a real revenue enabler. So I think really important. And similar with late payment and dispute prediction is another kind of credit collection area one. And then you kind of go down the list to more cash-oriented applications and forecasting. And then this last one, is kind of a use case around Treasury being an AI builder itself and building tools, particularly around dashboards and things like that, but kind of getting into cloud coding or vibe coding, I guess is the more generic term around building your own applications. And I think we've got some good examples of this as we go into the panel here. So just wanted to call that out. We're very interested in collecting what practitioners are actually doing, and if anyone wants more information about that, please feel free to reach out. And I know we'll hear from Ed and the Treasury 4 team a bit about some of the things that they're um, seeing from their customers, and then also how they're using AI with Treasury 4 itself. I wanted to also call out Ed as founder and chief product officer of Treasury 4, co-founder and chief product officer of Treasury 4 is a NeuGroup alumnus and practitioner from his days at Microsoft through to Itron and Tableau and then the Salesforce. But he always was a standout member in presenting on the data side of Treasury technology and something that he really went deep into. And I think that has really been seminal in making this AI conversation for Treasury possible is really the data understanding. So whether you become a Treasury 4 customer or not, I really wanted to call out Ed's sort of seminal thought leadership in that area, which is super important to everything that Treasury does from a technology standpoint, but certainly a foundational element for Treasury 4, but more importantly for this broader AI discussion, super important to have a really in-depth, full understanding of the data needs of not only Treasury but the whole finance function. So now I wanted to turn to our first panelist in Juliana Achetal from Calibra Scientific. Um, Juliana has like a problem that is shared by by other companies for certain in managing leverage ratios and also paying attention to debt covenants. And that with a typical lean treasury team, it's important to be uh, right about the numbers that go into that leverage ratio, and doing that, with a small team with pretty high stakes. If you have a significant amount of leverage, I think is a very interesting case example. So, Giuliano, maybe you want to, kind of walk us through how you're using AI in that context.
Yes, definitely. Hi, everybody. I'm Juliana Akhmetov. I am with Caliber Scientific. I've been with the company for almost 4 years now. I've built Treasury from ground up, so it's always evolving and changing. We're a private company, medium size. We're debt finance, highly acquisitive, right? So those leverage covenants are very important for us. And in the past, we used to work in a silo because on one side, it's the cash and the FX rates, because in our case, we have debt in three different currencies. But the leverage covenant is really translated into USD equivalent. And then there's the sales, the adjusted EBITDA, right? So in the past, when we were reporting to CEO, it was me providing an update about where the cash will be at quarter end, what can happen if the FX rate change, a few scenarios. But then we realized that it's always a different team, more on so first of all, accounting and reporting, and then also the actual sales team. And we have so many variables in this ratio that if anything changes on one side, the other side will be affected. And we didn't have a model, or maybe we didn't speak the same language that we use now, thanks to AI. It works really well. We spent time with somebody who helped us, who maybe took ownership, build that model, and it gives really great information to the executive team. So that's one of the cases that I wanted to share with you. It's a huge improvement and very important for us, for a company that's debt funded and has to make very precise decisions every quarter end. And of course, at Caliber, we're not currently fully automated with AI by any mean, but we're actually embracing it. We are very lucky that our CEO supports it. At the time, it's not a company-wide access. Not every employee has membership, but there is a few individuals who are currently testing and helping in places where there's a lot of data. And instead of spending hours sifting through the data, we use AI, and we also have a couple of young, very intelligent interns who help us maybe communicate between what's the business need, what's the AI, and what we can design, and then actually use it on repetitive basis.
No, thanks, Joanna. And I was calling it Calibra versus Caliber, so sorry.
Oh, it's
But and this is sort of gets to this, kind of cross-functional AI use, where you're kind of going off you bridging the cash FX and then the sales forecast. Maybe you can dig a little deeper in like what AI is actually doing in each of those areas, and then is that it is, as it gets in the sales forecast, is that something that the Treasury worked on with sales, or that sales came up with on their own? Like, how did that all come together across that sales Treasury finance divide?
So when it comes to the leverage ratio, the sales component is not driven by Treasury. Um, it's really driven by the GMs. And we're at this point where it's critical for us when we know quarter is coming, when we have our weekly results. And again, something else to mention, Caliber grew through acquisitions. So we don't have really a system where every day you're on top of all of your sales report. all of the work is very manual for us. We pull information from the 65 different ERPs. So even the sales numbers, that's once a week report, right? So as we approach quarter end, it is critical that the sales team know how much more they have to sell to make sure we at least meet these numbers. And then the next step is, if we know we're not going to meet those numbers, then what can happen with cash? Do we need to collect more? Do we need to be more careful with the spending? And then the next layer is, what happens if the FX exchange rate? So we need to be ready for all of it. So no, the sales forecast does not come from Treasury, but this engine, this model became more and more intelligent, right? Because we spent a few months feeding it data. This is how we want to see it. This is what are the variables. It understands, and it remembers. So at the end of the day, you really have the information you can rely on. It allows us to speak the same language, and it provides valuable information. It was a struggle in the past. You always were recalculating and then trying to merge these two different departments, cross-functional teams, right? And trying to understand, what does it really mean for us for quarter end leverage reporting?
No, excellent. That's a great way to think about it. You had mentioned when we spoke that you thought having AI was like having an extra analyst on the team. How are you thinking about this going forward in terms of staffing? I mentioned that you've got a lean staff. As you think about your AI use going forward, how are you thinking about both capacity and scope of Treasury operations and how AI fits into that?
Well, I think we're at the stage where we're all still learning, and I think Ed probably will be able to tell us a little bit more about innovations in Treasury 4, right?
Uh-huh.
At this point, at my company, yes, I mentioned that I use AI as maybe additional analyst to really supplement my work. And that's when I wanted to say, it's not that AI replaces me or my team. It's not like I come to work and open my laptop and all of the work is done for me. But AI is actually amazing in taking direction, in executing these formulas in Excel way quicker than I would, analyzing the data. It's smart enough and understands, and then it actually remembers. What it means for me with my very lean team, and probably many companies have lean treasury teams, you can leverage AI as an analyst, and then you have to validate, right? Initially, there may be some hiccups. Maybe it doesn't understand everything extremely well. So far, I have been pretty impressed, but it's still on me to validate the work, and maybe spend less time analyzing and more time being more strategic. So it's amazing. It saves a ton of time. It's an improvement. We all know it's there to stay, but we're not as advanced right now, where I can create a team and have multiple agents doing work and then providing me results. So that's probably yet to come.
Okay. And you touched on just now also, I think a key issue with with AI as 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 people become more reliant upon it. If you have analysts that come up with AI, maybe they're not able to build a model in a spreadsheet anymore, which I guess is one worry. And then you also mentioned the other worry is that can you also check and validate what AI has done is correct? And you also mentioned that you become a big fan of the Claude for Excel connectivity. Maybe describe like how that works from a spreadsheet building standpoint, and how you're dealing with these really valid concerns, I think, about the next generation coming up, and relying on AI to do the spreadsheet modeling and not being able to to do it if it, breaks down or validate what it's done.
Yes. So besides the model that I've mentioned, the leverage covenants, which is like HTML format, I use the add-on in Excel. It's very intuitive, I would say. It's great for building forecasts where you need to look into your trend or your averages or start a template for the next year. It saves a lot of time. Yes, you always have to validate and make sure that it's following your logic. But very quickly, when you have this AI agent, you learn what it knows and what it doesn't know. And with time, you just become a better teammate almost, it feels like. It does save a lot of time. I was just so amazed because instead of moving my columns and coloring my spreadsheets, it's all done for me, right? So you work on something that's a little bit more important. I was wondering when we spoke the other day, what is going to happen when you have AI agent helping you in Excel, and then one day you don't have access? Just like I lost access for a few days, and I said, oh my gosh, now I have to review and update all of my formulas for next month by hand. That will take me way more time. So my question was also about the people who are just joining the workforce in early 20s, right? For them, it's normal. AI is already available. We'll see how it is, but I'm sure there were times before Excel and people were fine, and that's just the next step. But yes, that was one of my questions, Joseph. I am wondering, especially about for the people who will join and AI will be there already present.
Yeah, it's almost like part of BCP planning now. Like what are you going to do if AI is turned off for whatever reason? Can you still function? Uh, Thanks, Juliana. Really, really, really good. Maybe we'll turn to Anna now, because Anna, you have more of a foundational AI use case where you're actually using it to help build a TMS for RAMP. But before we get into that, maybe we start with this wrapper or harness that RAMP utilizes and what the benefits of it are. But maybe first, like for the room, define what that is, if you would.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Anna Koff. I lead corporate treasury and financial operations here at RAMP. RAMP's mission is to save finance teams time and money. So we build that for our customers, but obviously that means we have to live and breathe that here in the treasury team as well. So I'm excited to share some of the things that we're doing to implement AI on our teams. So one of the things that RAMP has done, which has worked really, really well for the company as a whole, not just for finance, is that we have something called Glass. And so just to take a step back, one barrier to entry that I think a lot of people have, and that I certainly had prior to Glass, was just knowing where to start. Which tool should I use? Here at RAMP, we gave everyone access to basically all of the models and said, go experiment. It was early days. Our IT team negotiated contracts with each of the big model providers. And then it became a bit of a barrier to entry because I have to now think about, do I want to open ChatGPT? Do I want to open Claude Code, Claude Cowork, right? All of these decision points that add a little bit of friction to the starting process. And so one of the engineers on our team had the idea to create something called Glass, which basically removes that hurdle. So it's a wrapper for AI. So you can think of it as like basically a front door. So all I have to do when I want to use AI is just open Glass. I don't have to think about, do I want to open ChatGPT? Do I want to open Claude? I just open Glass. And then behind the scenes, we have something called RAMP Router, which is actually now available to the public, to your IT team specifically. And so it actually routes to the best model for the job. So behind the scenes, the router basically chooses generally the lowest cost option that your IT team has configured for you. So right now for us, for example, it's like a specific codex model, and it routes our requests to that particular model. So it's basically taken a lot of the decision making out for me. If I wanted to use a particular model, I could. So I could say, you know what, I don't really like this Codex model. I want to switch back to Claude Code, which I do sometimes because I don't love Codex. I like Claude Code better. But it basically takes that decision fatigue out of the picture. It's extremely helpful. And so I think the lesson for everyone here is maybe you don't need necessarily Glass or Router, but if you can make AI as part of your day-to-day, and reduce that decision fatigue, I don't think we need to be at the point where we're like really aggressively optimizing the models here in Treasury. Pick the model that you like the best, make it part of your day. That's where you get, I think, the biggest uplift from AI.
No, super interesting. And I guess like that also Glass also takes care of, I guess the way I understood it is your data connections and user permissioning and all the rest is part of that too. So you don't necessarily have to think about that pieces once those are wired in and you can move from model to model and all the connectivity and permissioning stays with you.
That's right. Yeah. So you connect one time rather than having to go into Claude Code, do all your connections, go into Codex, do all your connections. You just connect once in Glass.
And is that IT that maintains Glass and all the connectivity to it, or is that something that Treasury also gets involved with?
IT is running that, but of course we're a startup, so everyone can get involved to the extent that they want to, jump in and make suggestions for improvements and things like that, which is always fun.
Okay, excellent. So maybe we could turn now to what it's like to build your own TMS and how AI helps that process. And I think there's a really fascinating lesson that we talked about in that by cloud coding, what you want the TMS to do into, kind of a prototype, you're really able to get IT to understand what it is from a domain treasury standpoint that you want in terms of functionality in a way that, they never really understood until they saw the coded prototype. Maybe dig into that a little bit of like how that has helped you convey the treasury needs to IT and made this process of building your own TMS that much more effective.
Yeah, absolutely. So here at Ramp, we are building our own TMS. I wouldn't even necessarily characterize it as a TMS. It's a little bit bigger. We're a fintech. And so it's sort of almost like an operating system for our company. I wouldn't recommend building your own TMS to most folks here on the call, not for the faint of heart. But one of the ways that we have used AI heavily is with our engineering team. And specifically, we've been able to prototype in order to speed up the decisions around the TMS. And so obviously our engineering team that supports our team, they're not experts in TMSs. They're not experts in treasury and the flows that we have. They don't quite understand the importance of controls and like all of these things, right? And so we've been able to really speed up cycle times by prototyping what we want in Claude Code. So rather than trying to have a conversation with engineering and go back and forth and iterate over and over and over again about like what we want, we were able to put up a prototype and say, hey, for our forecasting module, this is basically what we want it to look like. And it can be a live prototype, or it could just be like pictures, right? It doesn't have to be that fancy, but just giving them more information about what we want has been really, really helpful. And then the second way, actually, that we've been using AI with our engineers a little bit more advanced is that we've actually been pushing our own PRs. So as the treasury management system is live, we are writing code effectively without knowing how to write code. So for small changes.
And PR is just for the sake of us that are not developer in the developer world.
Yeah, so we're pushing code in production. So we are making this to the actual treasury management system in Treasury without being software engineers. And so for low risk design tweaks, obviously we're not doing this for like really big, really meaty, important things. But for example, let's say we want to add a filter to a particular screen in the TMS, or export to Excel, which is my favorite button that I'm trying to add to all of our screens. I can go ahead and I can just talk to our system and say, add a button to this screen in this part of the TMS. And the system now with AI is smart enough that it can understand that and it can write code to do that. And then we have an engineer, of course, review before we push it out. We don't want the Treasury team running everything above. So the engineering team, of course, is reviewing. But that is actually really significantly improved cycle times, because prior to that, we would have to go through, give them a bunch of feedback, say, I want you to change this, I want you to change that. I don't like the color of this, right? And so we're able to do it ourselves, and it's been a really significant improvement in how we operate.
That's like I find that really cool. And you appropriately, I think, like caveated, not encouraging everybody to build their own treasury system, but you did tell me that the IT engineers like were sufficiently impressed with your prototype that they said, well, why don't you just continue to build this on your own, which probably not a great idea to be doing, but how do you think about that in terms of like the risk of vibe coding your own treasury application? Like, where do you feel like the line should be drawn between what engineering should be doing and what treasury should be coding itself? I mean, you mentioned buttons and interface design, but is there anything else that comes up to help people kind of think about that?
Yeah, we try to focus most of our changes to UX, so small changes that are more like design.
Okay.
So we do sometimes larger design changes. So for example, cash positioning is a tricky one from a design perspective, and so we actually sort of iterated on that in Claude Code. So I took a screenshot of our treasury management system, cash management, cash positioning section, and I said, I don't like this. Claude Code, you are a designer. Think about how to improve this. These are the things I want to get out of it. This is how I'm thinking about it. This is like what I want. Claude Code spin up a prototype for me. I said, I like that. I pushed that back into our engineering system as a PR. And so said, hey, I like this. Can you make it look like this? That was a little bit challenging. Like I couldn't do that all the way. It was a little too complex. But at that point, the engineering team can jump in and they can iterate back and forth with the coding system as well and say, help it get to where it needs to be. So it's an iterative process. It's not like a one shot, we just push it to code and it goes out. It is something that you can talk to the AI about and make changes over time. And so there is a lot of, I think, gray area between like what is too hard. And sometimes we don't know. My team might not know that actually adding an Excel export button is really complicated from an engineering perspective. And that's maybe not something we can do. At which point the engineering team can take over because they see all of our work. They don't just let us do anything by ourselves, which helps.
Okay. No, excellent. Thanks, Anna. And maybe that sets up you, Ed, to come in here. Anna talked about some of the helpful ways that the AI and vibe coding help get development, more effective and communicate the treasury needs better. Maybe you can weigh in on how, well, I guess maybe first, like what use cases are you seeing from Treasury for customers? And then we could maybe pick up, drawing from what Anna's talked about, how Treasury 4 is using AI to make your product even more on point from a Treasury practitioner perspective.
Sure. I think there's a couple of great use cases, and it really started this year when we released what's called an MCP server. So for those that haven't heard or understand, MCP stands for Model Context Protocol, and it basically is the rules and connectivity for how an AI LLM platform, the ones we've mentioned here, can communicate with the underlying application or backend database using your own user security credentials. So our customers can connect, the OpenAI products, the Anthropic products, Copilot, Studio, and others through our MCP server and interact with their data, not just querying it, but creating data, updating data, editing data, building analytics, and so forth. And then we've expanded that to actually create an in-app experience where a customer brings their license key and configure it in the application. We call it Ask Eddie is the in-app experience. It's no relation to me, but it's effectively you're bringing your license key, plugging it in, and then and what we now support is things like skills. You can create personal skills that you want to use in the application. You can create organizational skills. Maybe it's something like setting your cash position or doing a reconciliation, and you can leverage Treasury 4 curated skills. So the technology is continuing to grow rapidly. Our usage of our MCP server and Ask Eddie in-app experiences, I would say, doubling every month in terms of our end user usage of it. And they're really driving a lot of great use cases. So we've seen things like just querying data, finding a transaction, using it for transaction categorization, find the commonality patterns in underlying transactions to help me design a transaction categorization rule to apply or optimize transaction categorization rules. We've also seen the ability to bring in, as an example, your negotiated bank fee pricing schedules as a CSV or Excel or PDF, and bring that data in and save it in the system under what we call billing profiles to support bank fee analytics. Another example is customers are reading the long form PDFs of the trade instrument confirmations, so those letters of credit, bank guarantees, reading the PDF and creating those records in the application for including the cash flow schedule for things like step up and step downs. And so it's really creating a lot of automation there, I would say, but by and large, it's still querying data. I'd say at least 3/4 of the activity, probably even more than that, is just querying data. And that really then kind of gets into why understanding your data ecosystem and properly labeling data to give it the context. So a great example is if I just have a bank transaction, there's no context to it. It doesn't tell me whether it's AP or AR or payroll. It doesn't tell me from a cash flow perspective, is it an operating cash flow, a financing, or an investment cash flow? And that's the context that you need to be able to marry up with the underlying transaction data to then allow your reporting and analytics, whether it's your historical actuals or use in forecasting. So now it's becoming all about the context and then how you apply other data sets to that. So those are some of the ways that we're seeing that we're enhancing the platform to support our customers, but what they're doing with AI LLM tools around that.
Okay, interesting. And have you experienced, kind of what Anna described of customers or even prospective customers vibe coding things and saying, could you make Treasury 4 do this as a
Oh yeah.
way? Okay, okay.
Yeah. We have a great customer. He's actually on the call today. I won't name him, but I'll just say he's great, and he's used Claude to come in and visit us in the office here and say, here's how we should think about, or how I would like to think about cash flow forecasting, and how do you start creating different snapshots and being able to kind of bookmark or save those snapshots so you can compare maybe original budget to a refreshed, Q1 or Q2, what's changed between the forecast snapshots, what are the actuals doing, and the kind of the data model, and basically took our UI framework and brought it back in saying, here's what I'd like to see. And so we do see customers doing that and providing that feedback. And I would say because of the tools, and Anna was making a great call out about this, how fast you can iterate. I mean, how fast you can iterate small UI UX changes, but also designing, major functionality and features. And so it is a tremendous technology, and I think it's actually helping us in some cases get closer to our customers and really understand at the heart what are they trying to achieve and how can we leverage the technology, but the underlying data and how we're going to manage the data around it.
No, that's excellent because I mean, I imagine uh, AI is like helping you build out Treasury 4 faster, and whatever the roadmap was that you started with is accelerated quite a bit. And so maybe talk to that because when you co-founded um, Treasury 4, it seems like the big AI wave came like almost immediately after, if not concurrently. And how has this rapid uh, AI introduction to the world impacted Treasury 4 and your roadmap? And then, given what I said before about, your data-centric vision, do you feel like that has been validated with, what's happened since you launched?
Yeah, it's a great question. We really pivoted, I'd say, yeah, pivoted last year, probably in April of last year, April, May, around we're going to go all in on AI as our development platform. And it created a lot of friction, a lot of stress for the organization. It's a big change, right? It's not just dipping your toe in to using AI a little bit here and a little bit there, but really going all in, saying we're going to drive all of our development through AI. We're going to drive the application, the way we use it, and leverage all of the tools that are available out there from the different platform providers that we work with, and get everybody up to speed on that. And we learned a lot along the way. And so it's a little bit, it's probably a bad analogy, but it's like for us, it was throwing the parachute out of the plane and then jumping out afterwards to catch it, because you just got to be all in. It's not, and our team was and absolutely is all in on AI, and we're seeing huge benefits. But it took a while to get there, and because it is new technology, it's framing how you think about things, how you work, what your work is, and even how the teams are coordinated around managing code. Anna referenced PRs. That stands for pull requests. That's basically, I've written some code. Now I want to merge it into the overall code base. Yeah, another engineer needs to review it because you just don't want to push it in blindly. And so there's a process around that, and that's just collectively called a PR. And they can be very small and be very big. And as an example, we effectively, I don't know if I would call it vibe coded, but we built a new module we call Equity for, to handle things like share repurchase programs. So that was all built with using AI tools, and from the UI to the underlying database table to the workflows to being able to manage the workflow that creates settlement wires and updating your cash position. So effectively, all of that's was built by our AI tools and capabilities.
Oh, excellent. So before I turn it over to the audience question, maybe one last question for you, Ed, is, because AI enables the customers to, build quite a bit themselves around the edges, I guess, for lack of a better word. Um, like how are you thinking from a vendor perspective of what you should build versus what you should leave the customer to build and just provide them, whether it's through MCP or API connects to all the work you've done around the plumbing and data model, the bank connectivity, et cetera, which heavy lift for people to do on their own. Like, how are you thinking about what goes in the core of Treasury 4 versus what you leave to customers to build on top of it?
Yeah, a great question. I would say that the way we think about it is what is the first of all, what is the underlying data that needs to be captured and stored and enriched and so forth, and what's common across our customer base. We've had customers come and ask for us to build support for something very, very bespoke to them, and we kind of look at that and say, well, we've never had anybody else ask for this data set, or a specific workflow or integration. It seems very one-off. It's very maybe niche or industry oriented. And so we'll kind of make a decision of whether we want to do that or not. So we kind of look at that commonality there and how repeatable is it across our customer base. And that's the first thing. Second, I would say is we expose all this data to customers through MCP, and so forth, it becomes your API architecture becomes very critical. How your APIs work, how they present data, the rule sets around your APIs, and what's called the contract, how an API communicates with another API. And so that's something we spend a lot of time on. And then we think about how do we properly label data and give it the context so that as customers consume it through our APIs, they have the understanding or the context around what that underlying data represents. And so we think about that from several factors, including really robust reference data management, but also how we apply industry definitions where needed to certain data, and then the customer's own definitions. So it kind of gets it back to something like transaction categorization, which is used for really that's what drives your reporting around your cash flow actuals and your forecasting. And trying to enforce everybody into an exact specific paradigm doesn't work because everybody has different ways that they define their business definition of transactions. So having enough flexibility to configure that, but not make it completely custom, and then fit that within the way we're labeling that data as it comes in. So those are some of the ways we think about that and plan for that.
Excellent.
And I
Okay.
would just say, to make
Yeah.
one other comment, there's a little bit, I would say, a shift of what we're seeing is more usage in through the AI UI, as it were, whether it's ChatGPT or Claude in the tools. And there's a little bit of a concept growing out in the marketplace called headless systems, which means the
Yeah.
system doesn't have its own UI. So we do see some of our heavier users really spending a lot of time in their preferred LLM platform and using that principally to interact with their data. But I think there's always going to be a need for some level of UI and UX, especially around kind of structured workflows. And I would say that probably is most pronounced in payments and payment operations, where there's this very, you have a very specific workflow process bringing things together, and you wouldn't necessarily want to create a wire in and of itself, a free-form wire through an AI platform. And maybe that changes in the future, but those things where you're actually moving value versus reporting or building a dashboard, but actually initiating cash movements, that's where you want to be very thoughtful about how you leverage AI around that.
Okay. Excellent. That's probably a whole other session as headless versus what is a headless TMS? Probably a whole other session we can do at one point later. So let me open to the audience. I like looking through the chat. It looks like there's people are all over the place with 1, 2s, and 3s. So if anybody has questions or wants to share their stellar use case that they've built with AI, feel free to do that as well. Any questions or AI shares from the audience?
And if not, we can switch to our prize portal if there's no questions. Oh, here's a question. Any higher education?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead.
So,
Go ahead.
yeah, higher education. I would say probably a lot of it that we've seen. We have a few organizations we talked to in this segment. A lot of it's around cash flow forecasting because of the seasonality of tuition payment receipts versus the expenses that go out. And so we hear that a lot, the cash flow forecasting in higher ed.
Perfect. All right. Before we get on to some more questions, really quick, I'm going to share our prize portal. Let me just.
Yeah, one question here. Just can you expand on your comment to avoid AI to create a funds transfer solution? Well, the first and foremost thing is who's managing your connectivity credentials to your banking partners and how are those stored? Like if you have the API, if you're communicating with your bank partners for payments via API or SFTP, and someone's got to securely host and control those credentials, because if they're not, then you can run the risk of creating a big exposure. Because if you have the credentials, then payments just go and can be sent. So that's something to really, really keep in mind around kind of vibe coding and building payment integrations.
I also had a whole discussion with Anna at Ramp about this and the need for human in the loop for AI solutions. And I think, treasurers in particular get nervous about letting AI move money, particularly externally. Intercompany funds movements, you can always claw them back relatively easily. But, externally, it gets a little bit more dicey. And I think there's been some public examples of AI agents going wrong with money movement and payments. And that's a whole nother area that's coming quickly, is agentic commerce and letting your agents, shop for you and purchase things and pay for it.
All right, Emily, you want to lead us on the prize portal?
Yes.
And I can stop sharing my screen if that's needed.
It looks like there's a question for Anna about prompt engineering and training with Glass. Is that something you could address quickly, Anna?
Yeah. So here at Ramp, we were fairly early on the AI train. So we have been mostly experimenting ourselves internally and then sharing out those lessons with each other, rather than having any formal training, because I think when we had all of this stuff was very experimental at the beginning. So we haven't had any formal training on prompt engineering or on making Glass more efficient. It's really been a lot of back and forth and iteration and people sharing across the company about what works, what doesn't work. So it's been actually very informal. I would say I do a lot of research outside of work. So I watch a lot of, YouTubers talking about AI, things like that, talk to a lot of people in my community. I live in the Bay Area, so everyone here is talking AI all the time. So I spend a lot of time just sort of in that world learning about those things, but I would say it's been mostly trial and error for us more than anything else.
Thanks, Anna. I mean, let's like see what this prize is. I'm like,
Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
All right, perfect. Sorry, I was having some issues sharing and that freaked me out for a second. But so first I'll explain really quickly. Before you guys send in I see some numbers being sent in. I'm gonna go ahead and select two winners. If you see your name pop up, I'm also going to see your name out loud. Then you could go ahead and type in the chat which portal you'd like to pick. And then once I pick that first winner, then I'll go ahead and pick the second. So again, once I select the winner, go ahead and type in what portal you want. It's so funny.
They're already coming in. It's like a well-trained audience.
Everybody's going. It's great. All right.
I love it though. I love the enthusiasm. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and select the first winner. Good luck to everyone. All right, our first winner is Drew Brown. If you are hopefully still on, go ahead and type in the chat which portal. All right, Drew has picked portal number 4. So I'm going to go ahead and click that. And amazing, you have won a $100 Airbnb gift card. So congratulations. I'm going to go ahead and follow up with you via email after this. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and reset and shuffle for winner number 2. All right, our second winner is Patrick Lee. If you are here, go ahead and type in the chat which portal you would like to pick. All right, Patrick says portal number 2. So go ahead and click that. All right, Patrick, you have won a JBL portable Bluetooth speaker. So congratulations to both of our winners. Again, I'll go ahead and follow up with you guys via email after this. And with that, I'm going to stop screen share and we can continue with the rest of the questions.
All right, thanks, Emily.
Thank you, guys.
We'll probably have like time for one more question if there is one.
Any questions? And if not, Any going once, going twice? No questions. All right. Well, thank you everyone for taking time out today. Thank you, Joseph, for moderating. Juliana and Anna, thank you for your participation and sharing your experiences with the attendees today. It's great to have you as on the panel and just sharing your knowledge and experience with the attendees. We're going to be hosting another webinar on September 10th on our Ask Eddie in-app experience. So if you'd like to learn more about that and see that, please register for that webinar through treasury4.com. And thank you, everyone. Joseph, any final parting words here?
Yeah, I mean, I would thank you, Ed and the Treasury 4 team, and obviously Juliana and Anna. I would just leave everyone with, this idea that, what we've seen from our members is, there's 41 out of 57, I think, of these use cases that are live or near live versus, still in the pilot conversation stage. So, get out there and build some things, and really think about this line that we sort of touched on a little bit of where, whatever whether it's your current TMS or you don't yet have a TMS, where that line sits. I mean, I think Anna gave some useful caveats of, why you maybe not build your own system completely, but, it's kind of a new era of being able to leverage a system, whether it's Treasury 4s or another, and build around that with AI tools. And really, think about getting to this third wave where you're working end to end. And I think Juliana sort of showed the way where, she's brought the sales team in for that piece of the forecast to manage the leverage ratios at her company. So, but encourage everybody to be proactive about this, and wherever you are in the maturity ladder or whatever, keep pushing forward, because AI is not going to go away.
Thank you, Joseph. All right. And with that, thanks, everyone. Have a great Thursday and a great rest of the week. Thanks for attending.
Okay. Thank you, guys. And there's a short pop-up, so appreciate you taking 30 seconds to complete that. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.